Thank you very much, Claire, for joining me again. Another live stream. So earlier on today, we were hashing out the details of this little project. Let's do some really quick introductions. What's happening? Who are we? Probably know anyway. So I'm Khaled. Khaled, let's do my name properly. I'm a Muslim. Claire's agnostic. Despite her avatar dressed looking like a Muslim woman, she's actually agnostic, but she's very much in favor of Sharia in the West. What does Sharia mean? Very briefly, it means Islamic ideas that work, especially in terms of marriage. So, and what we're trying to do here is trying to get white people in England, Westerners in England and America and wherever, married, stay married. We're going to make an app, a book, and these hopefully helpful weekly live streams to help you do that, make the right choice, and all that kind of stuff. So, is that fair enough, Claire? Anything else you want to add to that introduction?
No, that sounds fair enough. We'll be basically doing classes in marriageability and inviting people to you know, give us their idea of what marriageability means. I think it's an idea that maybe it's not even in the vocabulary of the spell checkers, because people don't talk about these things, but it used to be a thing when people took marriage seriously. Is so and so marriageable, or they're just not because they don't have a job, or whatever. And this, I think, is an important concept for people to understand if they're
Yeah, it's
going to
good
take
though.
marriage seriously.
Yeah, it's good that we're reintroducing this idea of like,
I mean, can we even?
because yeah, because it's turned into magic, isn't it? It's like this romantic idea of like you just find the one, you bump into somebody and it'll work out, and that's why it's not working out.
Too many rom-coms.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to say like I'm perfect. I do think I was more, even though I was brought up as a Muslim, I was influenced by it loads more than I realized. I mean, I can imagine, like, I think maybe in the early years of my marriage, I was like, why isn't my wife running around like an action hero in all those movies? Like, why isn't she more active? Like, no, because women don't run around like that. And jump over fire and all that. I'm talking about all these action movies like
Mm-hmm.
Tomb Raider. Like, obviously they're like extreme, but women are nothing like what you see in the movies. Nothing at all like that. They usually have headaches, all this kind of stuff. And they don't run
Mm-hmm.
around. Not much, and in fact, it's not good. I mean, there's also wonderful statistics, but about women not shouldn't be running around, and all sorts of like information coming out at the moment. Like if you over exercise, you stop having periods and all this kind of stuff. Like we're going to try to bring people back to reality, including myself. And I've had to do that anyway. So we've got 4 questions that Claire has brought up. Each episode we're going to do it. We're also encouraging people to join in, like verbally on the camera, or you can keep your camera off, whatever, and tell us like why you're not married, or even if you're married and you want a second wife. So I'm looking for a second wife. And we can talk about how I'm going to do that. So I'm going to use the app, but to be honest, did I mention I'm moving to Syria?
Oh,
Yep.
why this move?
Oh, because even cheaper than Jordan. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and also I think I'm going to find more marriageable people. So I've got. It sounds weird. So the Muslim community that I belong to is relatively small in Jordan, but a lot bigger in Syria, and also people are surprisingly wealthy here. So, I mean, people like the more money you have, and people have very surprisingly high expectations. You have to have a house, you've got to fully furnished with another car, and lots of expectations. So, I'm hoping in Syria even less expectation, and it's a very practical way of thinking that I want to encourage people to do. Like, Like, you're not looking for the face, you're looking for attributes and attitudes and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
yeah, so we could talk about that as well. Like, I like to be
Yeah.
like super like clear about how I would do things before the app. I'm not sure if the app will work for me because not everybody's got that much internet access there. So
Mhm.
all sorts of alternatives. But anyway, let's jump into it. So, uh, the nature and purpose of marriage, really important question. Can I just give a few ideas very briefly and then tell me what you think? Yeah.
Mm.
So, so there are marriages that are working. Those are the religious marriages, and their idea of marriage is completely different to what you have in the West. So, what is the nature of marriage? Nature and purpose, I think they're kind of the same thing. The idea is for religious people is to develop yourself, and it sounds really boring. So we're gonna try to work on trying to make it sound exciting. And it is exciting, but it's long term. So develop yourself to become a better human being because God wants you to become a better human being. And the way you do that is you tie yourself. There's kind of two elements. You tie yourself with somebody who's completely different to you, a woman or a man, opposites, right? And it takes a lot of patience and understanding to do that. But secondly, it's like you grow a family, you have children, you create a brighter future by bringing them up well. And that might sound really boring because most people have this idea is like marriage is only about the two people who got married. But the thing with that is that um, that depends on a very romantic idea that your husband or wife is going to be so amazing. But actually, there's normal human beings like you with millions of flaws like you. They're going to be annoying like you. And so that is not going to keep you together. But if you have the right ideas, you can create beautiful things and actually can have a really good relationship, also have really good sex. Um, uh, it's all kind of like you have to see things the other way around. So that's me trying to explain it. What are your thoughts on that, Claire? And do you want to, I don't know, make it sound better
Well,
somehow?
well, I suppose we're going to be talking about good marriages and bad marriages, and um, but maybe well, I mean, okay, I've got a page open about marriageability, and
Mm,
it says rather simply eligibility for marriage, and
mm,
I think maybe we just need to start right at the beginning, like who
mm,
gets to get married, and why. I would say marriage is for legitimate children, and you'll probably say, "Oh, that's so unromantic." But I'm saying, well, that was what it was, made for, and I think we just have to put it at its boldest, most brutal purpose, so people understand. And then, the frills and the love and the romance. Well, it's up to them to make their marriage nice.
no, well, I want to make sure their marriages are nice, and you can when you have the right attitude. So sticking on the topic of what's the purpose of marriage, you're saying one purpose is to have legitimate children, but what's the purpose of having legitimate children is that they become better human beings. You might say, well, illegitimate children, some people are liberals who believe you should do anything and whatever you want. Um, they don't realize that all the mental health problems, the delinquencies, all the criminality, all the issues you build up, and that might sound really negative. Let me flip it. Like over here in Jordan, where I'm living at the moment, in the Middle East, um, I really enjoy just going past the house, past the houses. What's that got to do with marriage? When you walk past the houses, you can see all the touches of the housewife. You know, the pots, different colors, and it's not like mechanical beauty. It's kind of like awkward beauty of that different houses. And it's not even that. You can see like people going from one house to the other because they bought the one family bought houses opposite sides of the road, and they're going to each other's houses, and they've done all sorts of nice things like put lights between their houses, arching across the road, all sorts of nice little things. So what I'm trying to describe is that having legitimate children really is about creating a more beautiful future together. And it's subtle, it's not exciting like cocaine or whatever. It's kind of like you just look at the families walking together in the streets and you go, wow, that's really nice. Something about that. I don't know if I've described it well, but there's some peacefulness in it that you just don't see in the UK. The UK is full of single people, and it feels dead, and it doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. You don't see a brighter future. That's how I can describe it.
Yes. So we're thinking of this idyllic view of family life that maybe we remember seeing in, I don't know, American. Um, you're probably too young to remember the Waltons, but I mean,
I
there was
do
a
remember the
time.
Waltons. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and you know the kind of motherhood and apple pie thing, but obviously you're talking about the Islamic version, and um, I think people get it that um, if something's done in a family environment, it'll be, you know, safe and not edgy. Don't want to frighten the children, don't want to frighten the women. So it's all, you know, the idea of safety and respectability and, you know, care for the next generation.
Hmm.
Was that what you were describing and wanting more of?
Yeah, I
You know,
suppose. I do
you were
remember the
talking about a
Waltons.
suburb
Yeah.
of, you know, housewives visiting each other's homes and, you know, doing what mothers and wives are supposed to do, that sort of idea?
Yeah. So when people follow their gender roles or their sex roles, as gender is a made up word, um, they do things better, and they're more in line with nature. And then just like we're attracted to nature, when people fulfill their natural roles, where when we look at those, the result of it is far more beautiful. It's like um I don't want to see a woman who looks like a man, and there are plenty of those people. Well, not plenty of those people, but like it's like one of those 100-meter race women kind of thing, bulked up with muscles and stuff like that. Um, it's like when people are not fulfilling, oh, maybe that's not even a good example. The average Western woman who wants to go out for work, who's very argumentative, not feminine, not agreeable. Do you know what I mean? And men as well, like doing the opposite. They don't know their roles. They act like women. They don't know how to lead. It's all ugly and it's all falling apart. And the opposite is when people fulfill their natural roles. What are their natural roles? Women have babies, they take care of kids, they can't also go out to work, so they should be at home, and take care of details. They're always panicking and worrying about little things, and that's what they're really good at. Do you know what I mean? And men, we're kind of slightly careless, so we don't mind when bad things happen in the real world. We're good at taking care of things. We're more rational, so when women go a bit crazy, we just put things back in order. We don't have to boss all the time, but we need to be there. Um, that kind of stuff. So, and that kind of creates this harmonious thing. Like women, I think, want boundaries. Don't they want boundaries?
Well, yes, and boundaries of behavior are what we're talking about, and gender roles. We go back to gender roles and social life in the West is now so disordered that you know, I get people complaining about, you know, what are they doing to the loos at my workplace? We don't even, have proper symbols. They're all unisex. It's all, just really weird and awkward and inconvenient and really annoying.
Hmm. So let
And
me answer. So yeah, so the gender roles have gone out of control. Society's going
no
mental. We
gender
don't
roles,
have.
no marriage is basically
Yeah,
what I'm saying.
yeah.
So
Let's
unless you
quickly.
get that sorted, you're not going to get people getting married.
Yeah, because there's, yeah. Why would they not get married? Because so you're saying because they're not clear about their roles, they won't get married. And let me explain it this way. In Islam, husband and wife there's a word called jawaz, which means the other pair. But you can also describe it as the other shoe. It can be used for different terms. Essentially, we're not the same, but we work together. Like if you had two left shoes, it wouldn't work. You wouldn't get anywhere. But if you had a right shoe and a left shoe, you make progress in your life, you grow, and all that kind of stuff. Um, so that might sound really mechanical. I've got a comment, Claire is unromantic. You could say the same about me. I'm making the same sort of comments. Um, so it does sound very mechanical, Claire. So how do we make people understand that this mechanical way is the thing that creates beauty in the long term? The way I would describe it very briefly is the difference between sort of sugar and vegetables. Like in the West, you want like high octane, really exciting, romantic relationships in the beginning of the relationship, and then it fizzles out really quickly. Like if you have sugar, you use that energy and you burn out really quickly. But vegetables is kind of like slow growing. I'm not like a health expert, but I think vegetables are good for you. Do you know what I mean? And so it grows slowly. There are difficulties in marriage, of course.
Yeah, we
But when you
shouldn't
bear through them,
romanticize it, because then people will get disappointed, like, say, oh, it's not at all like it is in the movies. So you have to, on one hand, explain the bare bones of the thing and explain to them that if they want to prettify it, they'll have to do it themselves. But the structure is there, and the state will support, you know,
mm,
the idea of people getting married and having legitimate children and being good parents. To basically marriage is a breeding program, and obviously a lot of people don't want to think of them being bred like animals in a farm, but that's what it is.
I
That's
think
why.
that's a bit harsh. I mean, it. Okay, I'll tell you what. I've got 4 children, and I sounds ridiculous, but I never planned on having any children. Let me put it another way. It's like I just enjoy having sex, no condom because it's horrible. It's like putting a sock on, but it's not natural. Okay, and so that's just a fun consequence. And we're happy to have kids because kids bring more in Islam. We're told that a household is dead without kids, right? So it's not like we plan the kids or whatever. It's just like it happens, and that's what always happened in history. But you need to create the atmosphere, or you need to you need to be married first of all. So it's not like it's not like it's a breeding program, but it's very necessary. So what you're saying is totally correct, because humanity is dying out, and this is why we've decided to do this series to humanity. Let's say the Westerners are
But
dying
in
out.
particular, it's being directed at white people who have been marinating in feminism for longer than any other race, and that kind of explains why they are um, the way they are.
Hmm.
It's their history, it's their culture. They're the ones who, mind you, things are not much better in South Korea because they have a very high suicide rate as well as a very low birth rate. And
Yeah.
in China, I have discovered that in Sichuan province, that they're going to say illegitimate offspring is okay. So I think I mean, I was arguing with this Chinese person, and he said, "Oh, it doesn't mean that it's okay." And I said, "Of course, it means it's okay because you're equalizing married, legitimate children with illegitimate children, and a lot of people will opt for the easy way out, and then it will
Mm.
spread to other um, Chinese provinces, and then they'll end up like us, well, in the West anyway."
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that this man I'm talking to just won't accept it.
Is
But
he married?
yes, he is. And
Mm.
um, when I said polygamy would actually be a better way of producing legitimate children than lowering standards and saying it's okay for Chinese people to have illegitimate children. And he was saying, polygamy was evil and all kinds of things. So, you know, it's well, I mean, people, even though they call themselves atheist and reasonable, find it hard to accept polygamy.
Mm. Yeah.
But yeah, so he kept saying it's evil, but I'm saying, well, you seem to be saying that God is evil. Um, so I mean, if God allows it, then who are we to say no? And I also explained the practical social reasons for it. So if your country has suffered a ruinous war and a lot of the men have died, then unfortunately, whether the remaining men like it or not, they would probably be pressured to have more than one wife to
The way, yeah,
repopulate the population.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If there's very few men, then you don't really have an option unless you want lots of women not to be married and lots, or what really happens post-war, as far as I understand, is lots of adultery. Um, so that makes sense. And also, why are we putting artificial limits on who can have how many wives and things like that? Let's say if some men are more popular, and that's actually, I think, statistically, like there's a huge number of people who generally, or in history, I can't remember. I don't want to say 40%. I heard this ridiculous number, but anyway, historically, a lot of men don't reproduce. And we know that most societies naturally have a 50-50, men 50% men, 50% women. So if you got those kind of numbers and some men are simply not reproducing, then some men are going to have to reproduce in more women. It's just natural. So there's no point putting artificial kind of limits on how many wives a person can have. So Max, Demian, I have babies. Listen to you. We're trying to listen to you. If you got anything to say, what does this say? When you have one foreign influence that changes our society, that I don't understand what that means. Okay, cool. So right, so let's whiz on. I'm going to try to stick to an hour. Let's just give it a shot because you got some really good questions. How to be marriageable. This is really important. Um, so I'll Okay, so to be marriageable, you have to fulfill your role as for your sex. So you have to try to provide. You have to be a man in the sense that you have to realize you have to lead. These are based on Islamic principles. To be marriageable as a woman, you have to be willing to be obedient. So we can see that sounds really terrible, basic, but how can a man lead if you're not willing to listen? Do you know what I mean? And in the West, women are not willing to listen, so you've got no order in families, and people want to kind of rebel against that. But like, how on earth are you going to have any sanity in? I mean, if you how are you going to have any sanity in your family, especially with a woman leading? I mean, deep down women are emotional and panic and yeah. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I think feminism has confused both men and women about their gender roles. And the quickest way to fix it is to call it out rather than beat about the bush. I
Hmm.
mean, yesterday I read this really long essay by this Catholic writer, and I think all he was saying is that, well, men prefer to go fight, explore, and make money, while women, want to stay at home. And men, if forced to go abide by the rules of women, will just lose the will to procreate and marry. They will just not be fit to marry because women will actually despise them for a bit for for
Yeah.
obeying their rules, because even though they kind of should feel flattered that men are being agreeable to them, in the end they will despise them.
And that's statistically true because if you're like 3 times more likely to get divorced if you're a stay-at-home dad. So there's so many social statistics coming out that support what we've already, like, traditionalists have always known. So everything traditionalists have said just is coming true, and we can see the results so horrifically clearly. So when I say horrifically, it's like it is horrific that there are so many single men who are not having any sex, not in any relationship. That is horrific. For me, I think that's really sad. No wonder so many men want to commit suicide, and women are not having it any better either because, like, they're just getting abused by the same kind of nasty psychopathic men who have sex with everybody. Um, and then they think all men are terrible, and they're suffering from mental health problems. So everybody's suffering from mental health problems when they're not fulfilling these traditional roles. So the idea of, okay, so coming back to the idea of what makes somebody marriageable is fulfilling your traditional roles, the roles that work best in nature. Women take care of children because they have children, they have natural biological impulses to take care of children. There's something called a baby brain, which where women's brains literally change when they're having babies to hyper focus on taking care of babies, and then makes them more clumsy, as far as I understand. So they become,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yes. So basically, I mean, just to make the point, if a woman said, "I hate children," I would never have them. And, if I had them, I would probably kill them because I hate them so much. That woman would be unmarriageable, right? And if a man is poor and sick and stupid and, you know, I mean, that man is unmarriageable.
yeah,
So we're giving these sort of two extreme examples of being unmarriageable. And then, obviously everybody is sort of in the media, in the middle kind of thing. But,
good,
but
yeah,
obviously, a woman would want a good provider, and usually they want their men to be tall because they think that makes him a better protector. And I guess men would want a good mother and wife, and that's why they go on about cooking and cleaning and looking after the children, and then sort of assuming that these criteria are satisfied, they'll be looking for, well, she has to be pretty, she has to be, she has to have green eyes and red hair or whatever it is, the extra bits, like being fit and whatever.
yeah.
But
So this Max Demian, I see him posting lots of images in the, what's it called, the Telegram group. Is that right?
yes.
And is he the person who seems to have a crush on you, making lots of weird images of you or something? Is that right? Well, if he does, let's see what do you think, Max? Because I like to keep it real, and I appreciate him being here, right? Max, what makes you? That's great. So he agrees, right? So Max, what makes you marriageable? Give me 3 words, because our app that we're going to make is going to be based on attributes and stuff, and then, yeah, just it's good to let's to sort of it's good. It's a good way to think about what is it that makes you possibly a good husband for Claire in the future. Possibly go and woo her right now with your 3 words. I'm not. I drink too much. Simple as. Okay, cool. Right. So, but hopefully we can work on that. So right now, if you drink too much, the reason is because you haven't got a clear direction in life and you're upset about something, whatever. There's all sorts of reasons why people drink too much, and the idea is not to be insulting. It's basically like this is the thing that men want. Men want a really clear direction, something. They need to be clear. They don't want to be confused. I think that's another reason why people drink, because they're so confused. They don't know how to play their role. And so one of the reasons for doing the show is, if you can get married, if you can stay married, you can start fixing so many problems. Like I used to talk about, like, saving the environment and stuff like that. You don't know how to save the world if you can't save yourself. And it's really, really true, because if you don't know how to, I'm not going to go on about this too much, but if you are too imbalanced to, have a relationship with another person, you do not understand the balanced way of saving the environment long term. Like, we go to extreme things like stop oil and stuff like that, because they like to panic, because their lives are a terrible mess inside. So they'd like to go try to be heroes outside, because they can't solve their own problems. So if you're married, you're more stable, you're more calm, you think through the problems better, and there are a lot of solutions to all sorts of other big problems. But you got to solve your own problems first. What does he say here? No, you don't just like booze. Nobody likes booze. It's just like saying, I just like cocaine, right? You have a dependency problem. If I were to sweep Claire off her feet, I would show up in the UK. Oh, okay. He's not even in the country. Okay. Is that true? Is he from somewhere else? Do you know?
Yeah, he's not British.
Oh.
But before I forget, what I wanted to say about men is that it's very hard for people, men or women, to think, oh, I just like to get married and have children. I think they have to feel this in love feeling to make you think, oh, I do want to spend the rest of my life with this person and have his or her babies. Because, just put as a bold proposition of having children, I think most people will just say, well, I'd rather not, having to be stuck to one person and, looking after the children and the inconvenience and the disappointment. So I think romance has to, or the possibility of romance has to, come in.
Right,
So
great. Very
think,
important point.
yeah,
Okay,
they have to be in love.
No, but I'm going to talk about romance in a completely different way, right? That most people don't realize. Okay, so that people have got a really messed up, what's the word? Materialistic, iPhone-y sort of view of human beings. Let me start with this. If all of us are works of art, God's work of art. Like, if you appreciate, like, my background, I love just looking at the trees and the oranges and whatever, and even the leaves are beautiful, right? We are also creations of God. Let me get to the point really quickly. Every woman, every man is hot. But we've got such a messed up idea of that, because we have to only be really attracted to models, and even models are horrible. Most models, okay, they're chosen based on extreme features. They're not good looking. I mean, most models I would hate to have a relationship with, because for some reason they have to be size 0 or 1 or 2. That means they've got no breasts, no butt, no nothing. It's disgusting. It's basically, somebody described them as prepubescent boys. So we've got our whole scale and everything mixed up and confused about what good looking is. So once you realize everybody is a work of art, but what you have to do is you have to give it time. So to be marriageable, let me explain this. You have to not look at lots of different people, as in lots of other, let's say if you're a man looking at other women, because what you do is you confuse your brain. And once you focus on your wife, like me and my wife have amazing sex all the time. We've been married for 20 years, right? It's just because you focus, you don't confuse your brain. In fact, when I was first married, I let my gaze go this way and that way, and it was bad for the relationship. So it's really important you focus, and then that's essential part of being a marriageable person, that you don't get distracted. You don't think the grass is greener on the other side, because you're grown up enough to realize that everybody is flawed, You're also growing up enough about what sex is. It's relationships of two minds, and the sex comes afterwards. So that that's an essential part of being marriageable, and therefore the romance. It's not romance in a normal sense. Me and my wife just talk normally. We don't go, "Oh my god, here's some chocolates, here's some roses, blah blah blah." It's like it's just like we have a good relationship. We enjoy raising the kids, the seemingly boring things, but the kids are not boring. They're really funny, and they're all growing up and doing their different crazy things at their different ages. So forget romance. That's a stupid idea. Be connected. Grow a family together. You'll love each other. When it comes to being in bed, you just have to be focused on her and don't start thinking of other people. And when you don't think of other people, what happens since the beginning of time will always happen. So that solves the romance thing. Does that kind of explain anything? To be marriageable, you have to have the right mindset.
Oh, you have to want to get married. So people might want to marry you, but if you're not into the idea of getting married, you're not marriageable. If you don't want
No, but
to
you were talking about the need for romance in the relationship at some point. Is that right?
well, certainly affection and mutual respect.
Yeah, and I was saying to be marriageable, the affection doesn't happen by itself. If you're wanking over porn all the time and looking at everybody else, that affection won't exist because your mind will be confused. So part of being
Mhm.
marriageable is being focused. Don't have adultery of the eyes, if you know what I mean. Does that make
Yes.
sense? So you have to have that level of grown upness. So cool. So that answers that question. Shall we move on to next another point, or do you want to add to marriageability? Cool.
No, no.
Okay, how to be lovable? That's a really important question. Okay, so two things. I think I'll start off with what what is the wrong idea of how to be lovable. So there's a lot of statistics saying you've got to be um, uh, di- women are attracted to, I don't know, being I don't know, bad or dark triad and all this kind of rubbish and stuff like that. There are there are different women. There are broken women and there are traditional marriageable women, right? So there is a degree to which women are attracted to, let's say, masculine men because they have to be masculine. Men should be masculine, but at the same time, they're supposed to be caring and responsible, which is not what a lot of broken women want. So when I say broken women, if you've had a lot of relationships and you don't have attachment, which is what happens if you have a lot of relationships, and you've had bad experiences, like your parents got divorced and stuff like that, then you seem to be attracted to, I don't know, something else, but not something that's healthy. So you don't want to be what was the word, lovable for all kinds of people, because if you're lovable to broken people, you're going to be not lovable to people who actually want a long-term relationship. So how do you become lovable to people with long-term relationships? And back to the idea of fulfilling your sex roles. You might say, oh no, that's really boring. That's not what lovable means. Lovable means, your nose is the right shape and I don't know, you act like a hero or something like that. I don't know what it is that people, whatever's in the movies. But actually, what we're naturally attracted to is some sort of functionality. Why is it where a man is attracted to, I don't know, breasts or whatever, or a certain face and all these kind of things in a woman? It's because there's a functionality behind it, which is reproduction. So in the same way, men have to demonstrate they are functionally useful to the opposite sex. So they need to be leading, strong. They need to have good mental health. They need to be calm. All these kind of things. So in short, what I'm trying to say is, if you step away from the magical idea of romance, which makes zero sense, there's no evidence for it, okay, then you'll realize, and just go back to the biology of things, you need to be useful. Becoming useful makes you lovable, but also not just useful. If you're a horrible person, nobody wants to be married to you, right? Both husband or wife, right? So you just need to also be a kind. Basically, if you're a religious person, you're a righteous person, then you do all the things that are expected of you in the Quran. Be kind, be patient, be all these other things. So there's a mix of usefulness and kindness. What would you say? That makes you
Yes,
lovable.
so I mean, we're attracted. We're usually attracted to people who love us. So, I mean, that's why people, or men buy, well, people buy gifts for each other, and say things that they might not mean, but to show that they like that person, and in order to get something out of them. So we are attracted to people who like us more than other people, for example. And the other thing is that we, you know, we just want not to have to worry about somebody, no longer liking us and being mean to us. And so I think good manners is, automatically makes a person attractive.
Hmm.
Being a nice person.
Yeah. Now, being nice, there's a different, like, women are, we might call kind, but they don't know when to stop. So if you have a woman taking care of the house by herself, like a single mother, she doesn't know how to keep the boundaries. So nice is a very general word, and that's why in Islam actually tells you what is good and bad. There are limits. You can't just be nice and forgiving all the time, but at the same time you should be forgiving when you need to be forgiving. And women don't, oh, we've got Jay, let's have him jump in. Which Jay is this? Just Jay, who's been on my show a couple of times before?
There's only one J, I think, isn't there?
Hey, good to have you. It's been a long time.
Yeah. How are
What is
you?
that a picture of? I'm very good. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the picture.
My daughter's dog.
Oh, okay. Does it have a hat on or something?
I think so.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
think so.
cool.
Oh,
Okay, let's
I
jump
heard
into
you
it. Go on.
using the word masculine a few times, so I thought that was a call for me to come in on the show.
Good, good. I'm glad you're masculine. It's good. We have too many
Oh,
feminine men.
yeah, and also as well, when you were talking about men and women have to be nice and approachable and everything, Claire was making a big racket in the kitchen, and
Huh?
I did wonder if that was her being quite inconsiderate, to be honest.
I don't know. I didn't hear. I didn't notice the racket in the kitchen. But anyway, let's focus on. Can you tell me what makes a person lovable, in your
Oh,
opinion? I've said two things. Tell me if you disagree. Forget the romantic idea, because we can see romantic relationships aren't working because they just fizzle out really quickly. In my opinion, you can disagree with me. It's being functional. It sounds really boring, but if you're useful, especially if you're fulfilling your natural sex role, if you're being like a man, if you're a man, if you're being like a woman, if you're a woman, you're going to be good at what you do, and you're designed to do that thing. Okay, evolution, if you want to believe in that, yeah, which I do essentially, okay, it's made you to do that. And if you do something else, you're going to be crap at it and you're not going to be attracted to each other. And so being functional, useful, as well as having morals, and morals is a complicated thing. That's why religions have kind of detailed them out exactly what is good and bad. And if you follow that, like if you're kind at the right time in a balanced way, those kind of things make you lovable. What do you think? Does that sound boring? Does that
I
sound
think
wrong? What does it
no,
sound?
no. I think those things help. I don't
Yeah.
think I don't know if there is one answer. You see so many books and coaching and
Yeah, but
therapists.
books by a bunch of losers, yeah, and the
Yeah,
therapists are a
I
bunch of
agree.
losers as
I
well.
agree, but they claim they've got the answer.
But
I
tell me a
think
different answer. I want to hear, like, we're trying to be short and sharp. Tell me something you might think was missing from that, and we can debate that.
I think the more a person is on their game, meaning like got their stuff together, it's more they're a more attractive proposition as a employee, as a friend, as a husband, as a wife, whatever. Now, even still, I
Give
don't.
me an example of getting their stuff together, like work,
Well,
maybe.
they've found a place in the world. The morals and are intact. They live to them. They might be
I like
consistent.
let's start with the first thing you said, because that's so important, right? So if they found their place in the world. Most men and women don't know their place in the world because they're trying to be something. Men are trying to be like women, or they're really confused about their role. If a man puts their foot down and says, this is how things should be, which is what a man naturally does, they're bigger, they're designed for that. Doesn't mean they're mean, but if they don't have a role and they're told off for having their role, they're so confused. Men and women in the West are so confused. When you have that direction and you know your role, then you're going to be put together, and then you're going to be lovable, I think.
Yeah, and I think that the more things you do, say for example, you met someone tomorrow, and they said, "Oh, what were you doing last night?" And you said, "Oh, I was doing a stream, and with 2 people. What was it about?" Now, that as opposed to, "Oh, what were you doing last night?" Nothing. Just relaxing. Okay, right. Well, do you like relaxing? Yes. And so the more you do, like in life, I think it's more appealing and attractive in general than not. But I don't know. I still think you have to want to be with that person, and you can tick all the boxes you want, like men have money and muscles or whatever. But certain women will not want to be with them. It's not it's not physics. It's not science. There's something else
I
going
think it
on.
is. I think I want to get away from this romantic idea that is different for everybody. We're all human beings. We all have, like, men and women are different. Therefore, men need something from women. Women need something from men. And if a woman tries to be like a man, it gets effed up really quick. So let me ask you a question. Are you sometimes put off from being masculine? Like, do some women tell you off, or has that been a problem in a relationship when you try to be masculine?
No, it's the other way around, to be honest. Like, I think women want it. It paralyzes them. They haven't got any control over it. And the thing to do if they complain about it is be more masculine.
Cool, yeah. And I made a point that you don't want to be lovable to all women. You don't want to be lovable to broken women, right? Because that's not going anywhere anyway. Because I think that confuses men.
Broken women tend to attract broken men and vice versa.
Yes.
I've been with 1 or 2 in my time who were crazy, and when I look back on it, they were a perfect match.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a verse in the Quran which says good men are for good women, bad men are for bad women. So if you're being lovable is about being the right person. And so it's not like you magically end up with the right person. If you work on yourself and you become a better person, you will naturally be attracted to the same level, those qualities. Like if you're a liar, okay, you haven't developed yourself and you like the short-term games of lying, you'll be attracted to short-term thinking people, other liars. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah, no, exactly.
yeah,
I do believe you deserve and create what you get.
exactly. Yeah.
And that's one of the hardest things, but one of the best things to realize, that everything that we've got, we've created and made. There's no other way around it.
Cool. So that's a really important topic. I'm trying to get this done in 1 hour. So you've got about 12 minutes, right? And so the next question is kind of zooming back out into sort of the big picture. And it's like, watch. And okay, so I'll ask the question first, but then I'll kind of, I don't know, work on it a little bit. How to make the government help you be marriageable and stay married, right? So I do like the big picture of like what would be a better society, but at the same time, I don't want to hear people whinging, oh, the world isn't perfect, because the world isn't perfect, and I want people to get married in this imperfect world while it's imperfect. So, having said that, what would make things? What could the government do, or what could society do to make marriage more common or help people stay married? What do you think? Any thoughts, Jay?
I think from the stuff we've got about, not a lot, but I think massive tax breaks and maybe people who are married with kids, more access to social housing, stuff like that, marriage, child places. If you want to promote marriage, it has to be seen as an attractive proposition. And in this country now, it's I think it's more, the government do more for single mothers, and they maybe pay out more money for single parents. And just last week on the radio, there was a program with men ringing up talking about they were demanding maternity leave after their wife had their baby, because if not, their mental health would suffer. I mean, it's that, you know, pretty.
So
low
women.
stuff.
So who demanded maternity? You say maternity leave, right?
Men, the wife would have the baby.
Paternity leave, paternity.
Yeah, paternity. So the parents, the father would want 2 weeks off work paid by the government, because some firms weren't, in order to bond with the child and stuff like that. I mean, it's.
So is that a good or bad thing?
Bad.
Okay, I'll tell you what, that doesn't even work even if you get a year and a half off. I'll tell you how I know, because in Sweden, where my cousins are living, that's what they get. They get paid at, I think, 80% or 70% of I think 80% of their salary just to have babies, and you get a year and a half off. Ridiculous. Yeah. I don't know how it's possible, but they do that, right? But I think they've still got a population problem. It's all the Muslims having the kids, right? But they're pretty desperate, and I don't think it works, because you can't. There don't seem to be any incentives in that way to get people married. So I'm going to tell you, kind of. I don't know if you can call it government. I say society.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the short version. Either just become a Muslim, Christian, whatever. Join a community where there is real community, and that will help you stay married, because then you can be part of a community. It's really hard, and you do need extended family. You do need your mom, your dad, everybody chipping in to raise kids. I think what we live in, like in a modern nuclear sort of society, nuclear families, where I tell you something that you can tell me as a man, right? Have you had kids or something already?
Yeah.
Right? Isn't it? It's just going to sound really rude, but isn't it really annoying to play the same baby games a million times with your kids when they're really small? I don't think that's natural. It's what's natural, what you have over here, right? You have loads of kids from all the different families, and you just shove them in front of the other kids, and they play with each other, do their baby games 100 times over, right? So I don't know what the government exactly can do. I'm not sure. I do like the big picture sort of thing about it. But I have to think about it a bit more. But I think it's more like you need community. You need like the whole for like as a Muslim, we've got like massive Muslim communities that always know each other and help each other out. In the old days, you used to have churches, and maybe there were church communities, and maybe if you went to Sunday school, you would throw your kids there, and they would be taken care of.
I used to have Sunday school. There'd be church, and my dad was a sportsman, so I would be with other parents and their kids when I remember being 2, 3, 4 year old, and but these days it's nobody plays sport. It's all computer games and stuff. So
and nobody goes to church either, right? So there's no community center where you can, or your kids can all play together, and then you don't have to do the stupid baby games.
For Christians, the average age is about 80 in the church I occasionally go to.
Right, exactly. So that's really missing. I'm trying to think, what does the government here in Jordan do? Because they're really family orientated. Well, they have parks. They have a lot more well, I mean, you got loads of parks in London anyway. But it's really people. Like if you go to a park here in Jordan, and your kid's about to fall on one of those, apparatuses, whatever it is, right? Another kid will save your kid, or another adult will save your adult. There's no like differences between people. I've seen some really weird things, but it's normal here. Like I've seen mums leave their babies rocking on a baby seat by themselves and then come back a few minutes later because they're not scared the baby will be taken or something, So I'm not sure what it is. It's something about community, but how do you create the community? It starts with like the family itself. Like if you got the family mindset, then you're gonna, if you're a good dad, you be a good dad, sort of a good uncle to everybody else around you. You know what I mean? Like if you're functional, then you're the building block of a better society or something with the same sort of mindset. But if you're a lonely person, like most people are British, and they're wanking off to porn, and they're getting more like pedophilia is increasing, because I don't want to give a reason for pedophilia, but I think I'm quite sure this is true, that if you're like going
is it not the growth of the Muslim population?
Heck, it's probably the opposite. It's just that's propaganda. It's probably white people doing it. Logically, it's probably that, right? Because if you're, let me put it this way: how do you get pedophiles? Why is the rise of pedophilia increasing really quickly, especially in America? It's people are just like going after porn, soft porn and hard porn, then they run out of ideas and they want to go to really extreme things, right? So it's not going to be the family people. The family people in long-term relationships have like something like 95% of the sex. There's a statistic like that. So they're getting sex. They're not frustrated. They're not having to wank over porn as much, let's say, right? They probably are a little bit, right? So I would say I don't know what the government can do, but like you got to, I think individuals have to fix themselves. I don't know. Was I going to think of an idea what the government? I really struggle to see what the government can do. Claire, what can the government do?
The government could abolish no-fault divorce. It could implement secular Quranism and treat unmarried parents as sex offenders. It has the power to pass and repeal laws. So
tell you something that has worked actually. In China, was it in China where they made it that if you want a divorce, you have to wait 3 months, and that reduced divorce rates massively. And guess what? That's an Islamic teaching, that if you want a divorce, you have to wait 3 months. I think it was 3 months. Yeah. So it's like you can't heat of the moment. I feel like it, and you got time to change your mind. And most people do change their mind because it's a stupid idea normally to get divorced. So that's one law. I don't know. Jay, can you think of any other things that the government could possibly do?
I think the fact that you're both struggling to find an answer, a sensible answer, possibly means that it's not the government's responsibility. I mean, it's outsourcing, isn't it? It's like, why should the government? Is it there? Do I want the government interfering with my? No, thank you. you know.
Well, I'm sure you wouldn't, but as I was saying to Khalid earlier, marriage is a breeding program of the government. Or it used to breed people through marriage, and now it doesn't care. It just lets random people have sex with each other, and then they discover they're no good to join the workforce, and they have to import foreign labor and upset everyone that way.
Okay, sure. This is a really interesting point, right? So in Jordan, they're beginning to have problems like that, right? Because secretly, people are having girlfriends, boyfriends. It's kind of a poor or a negative cycle. And a negative cycle is something like this. Women started expecting more and more. Like, I want, a really nice house, furnished, blah, 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 nice car and all this kind of stuff, which made it harder to actually get married. And when it's harder to get married, people are going to have sex on the side. And then people, because they're having sex on the side, they delay having marriage even more. And it's just like a negative cycle. So if you do have some brutal law that clamps down, like you can have all sorts of laws on all sorts of things, right? Like drugs and stuff, right? And if you realize sex outside marriage is as dangerous, let's say, as having drugs, cocaine or whatever, when you put it on that on that level, and you have strict rules and say we're gonna whip you 100 times in public for having sex outside marriage, then that will stop things from going out of control. What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, I was talking to a friend today, and we were saying that about 30 or 40 years ago, if in the town where I grew up, if a person was discovered had been drink driving, they'd be ostracized in the community. A lot of people wouldn't speak to them. Whereas, and if someone was, they called it playing away from home, having an affair, yeah, it was considered not as bad as drugs, but pretty bad. But these days, it wouldn't be.
And I'm sure if you wound the clock even further back, it would be so terrible that something really bad would happen to you, isn't it? If you go back 100 years, let's say.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, having thought about it, I do put the pressure on that Muslims don't need to be whipped to, like, they're having loads of babies and whatever and getting married and generally staying in long-term relationships. Yeah, of course you can say there's all these exceptions, but statistically they're having, like, I don't know, double the children or something. I can't remember exactly what, right? So, and they're not being forced because of laws that say we're going to whip you or something like that. But having said that, the reason why they're doing it is because of older traditions, and those older traditions can die out slowly. And so I suppose I do agree with Claire on having these really tough laws, because you do go down a slippery slope at some point. Like when you say, oh, it's okay, and then it gets more acceptable until it becomes normal not to be married. And that's where we are at the moment. So what do you think about that, Jay?
No, absolutely. I mean, you've just described what's going on, and liberalism has created that. It's shaken off them rules and principles and morals, and it's now into obviously the transgender like ideology, whereas 20 years ago it was the gay ideology. Transgender will probably burn out, and then we'll have something else. And yeah, it's a world
exactly.
we live in.
If it's not having a girlfriend or boyfriend, it comes out. You can be gay, and then you can be a man if you're a woman, and then you can be a cat, which is already happening as well. So there is a slippery slope. Okay, cool. So I really appreciate you being here, Jay. Thank you, Claire, as well. I'm desperate to try to finish on time because I want to do this every week. So any last words, Claire, and then last words, Jay. So let's go with Jay first, and then Claire can wind up, and then we'll just
yeah
start.
I mean, I don't know what Claire thinks of this, but I think you could maybe have Claire to run a nursery for a month, and we could film her spending time with children, and she can demonstrate her soft, motherly, feminine side. And I think that would be a good education and lesson for all the young mothers to be in the country. I think she'd be really good at that.
I'm not sure what that's all about, but anyway, Claire, what do you want to say?
I see my role not as a childminder, but somebody who is capable of solving the long-standing social and political problems of the West. And I have basically worked out that Christianity has failed, and so has liberalism, and attempts have been made last century to replace liberalism with communism and fascism and Nazism, and it's all failed. And I think, you know, it's pretty obvious what the next step should be, but there are many people who don't like the idea, and we have already seen what has happened to Westerners who ignore
Where's the
the
next
rules of
step?
marriage and good parenting. I'm sorry?
What is the next step? People become Muslims? Or
Yes.
Yeah.
Or you know, use the rules of Islam to remind themselves of the purpose of marriage. Because it's not enough just to have white babies. These white babies have to be, you know, properly parented and looked and educated so they can join the workforce of the future. You know, it's not sort of pump and dump women and let the women bring up their illegitimate offspring on their own and expect them to turn out well. They won't turn out well if the father is absent.
Yeah, cool. All right, thank you very much for rounding it up. Each week we're gonna try to improve on it. And next time Jay, are you married yet?
No, are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you. So what we're going to do, we're trying to be really practical in making sure we're going to get Jay married, we're going to get Claire married, I'm going to get a second wife, so we're all going to work on each other.
I do think Jay wants to get married. I think
he does. Jay, do you
him.
want to get married? Do you want to get married, Jay?
Not particularly, to be honest. I mean, no.
We're going to sort these attitudes out. All right, next time maybe. Please do come again if you want, yeah? We're going to be doing it every Sunday. All right, thanks,
Thank you.
Jay. Bye. Bye.
Bye.